Yo, 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 what it do? What it be? It's your boy A.N.T. repping the motherfucking game. Gang, you know we don't play none of that. If you a lame, can't hang, all of that. Bang, bang. And I'm back with another top 5 list. Today we gonna do the top 5 centers of the 1970s. So let's get it, y'all. The 1970s saw an explosion of talent, not just around the NBA, but there was also another league with the ABA with their share of talented players like Dan Issel, Alex English, Dr. J, Artis Gilmore, who we'll talk more about later. Uh, but there wasn't just one center or one team in the NBA winning every single title. There was smaller market teams winning championships, but despite that, the NBA wasn't gaining popularity. As a matter of fact, they kind of had a little bit of an image problem going into drug problems with players, and a lot of fighting on the court going on that led to an image problem that would go into the 90s and 2000s, where players were getting called thugs, and there was no room for the sport. Just funny though, because I never heard that get talked about with like hockey fights or anything. Now I know hockey's done some things to kind of penalize fights over the years and stop fights, but it's still a prevalent part of hockey. It gets cheered, whereas in the NBA it's very like frowned upon. And again, players were getting called thugs, and they had a dress code implemented and all kinds of BS to deal with that. But like I said, even though there wasn't a dynasty that emerged during the 70s, there was a plethora of talented centers around the league. Unfortunately, again, since there was no dynasty to dominate the decade, this era gets overlooked. But to ignore an entire decade of basketball because it's not visually appealing or there was no superstars, it's ludicrous. It's disingenuous. There was stars, but before I get into the top 5 centers of the 1970s, I do have a few honorable mentions that didn't quite make the top 5, of course, but they still deserve recognition for their success in the 70s and the mark that they left on the game. I talked about Willis Reed and Wilt Chamberlain in my Greatest Centers of the 1960s video, and both of them won championships in the 1970s. Willis Reed ended up with 2 rings and 2 finals MVPs, and he still didn't crack the top 5. Why is that? Willis Reed suffered a torn right thigh muscle in the 1970s finals. Despite his injury, he led the Knicks to their first finals win and won both the finals MVP and regular MVP of that season. Hell, he even beat Wilt Chamberlain and the Lakers to do it. However, after this injury, Reed's numbers take a drastic dive. After Reed and Wilt's teams didn't make the finals in 71, they would meet again in the 72 finals, and this time Wilt and the Lakers would beat the Knicks in 5 games. Wilt would get his second ring and his first finals MVP, since the first time he won a chip, the finals MVP didn't even exist. Wilt and Reed would see each other one last time in the 1973 finals, and the Knicks would gentleman sweep Chamberlain and the Lakers in 5 games. Reed would get his second ring, second finals MVP, but in my opinion, he didn't deserve his second finals MVP. He was probably the worst starter in that series. You could give it to literally any other starter and I wouldn't be mad, but Reed, stat-wise and just consistency-wise, there's no way he deserved it. You could give it to Walt Frazier. You could give it to Earl Monroe. Bill Bradley you could give it to. Dave Debusschere, or however you pronounce his name, had a really good game, but he also had a game where I think he only had like 2 points or something like that. So, again, maybe not him, but those 3 other guys I named had a very consistent series, and in my opinion, a better series than Willis Reed. Wilt would retire after that series. Reed would retire a year later. So even though they dominated those early 70s years, Wilt and Reed were clearly on the downslope of their careers, and their numbers in the 70s don't stack up to these guys who peaked in the 70s, even though they may have similar accolades it don't hit the same, fam. Another center that didn't quite make the list is Artis Gilmore, who played in the ABA. He wouldn't play in the NBA until the merger. So it's argued that he really wasn't playing against the best comp like some of the other guys that I'm about to name on this list. He won the Rookie of the Year and the MVP in the ABA in 72. He also won a championship in 75 in the ABA. Again, all of those really just get ignored because he wasn't playing in the NBA. It doesn't mean he wasn't dominant for his time or a good player. He just, again, I kind of tend to agree or lean on the side that he wasn't playing against the best competition. And again, after the merger, the ABA's stats and all that shit kind of just gets thrown out the window. Gilmore, he never won a chip in the NBA, and he led the NBA in field goal percentage 4 times, went to a couple All-Stars. But other than that, Gilmore was an underachiever relative to his talent. Some of the other talent that he had in San Antonio, for example, playing with George Gervin, who I'm sure I'll get to in a top 5 list in the future. But to cap off my honorable mentions, it's Bob Lanier, who he was a 7-time All-Star in the 70s, and besides being the All-Star MVP in 74, Bob Lanier's accolades don't stack up to these other guys that I'm about to name on this top 5. No disrespect to Bob. He averaged 20 and 10 for his career. He never even sniffed the finals, though. And despite being a great defender, scorer, rebounder, this never led to any measurable team success or even personal accolades. So it's really tough to put him in that top 5 type beat. Now, without further ado, let's get into the top 5 centers of the 1970s. Starting at number 5, I got Wes Unseld, who was 6'7", really undersized, had to guard guys 6'10" and up every night, and he managed to be a defensive force during this decade. He averaged just 10 points, but he averaged 14 rebounds during his career, and with his great outlet passing skills, elite rebounding, and ability to guard guys taller than him, Wes Unseld and the Washington Bullets, who are now the Washington Wizards, they made the playoffs every year of the 1970s, and when it came time for the playoffs, Unseld's play and stats were consistent with his regular season performances. In 1978, the Bullets won the 1978 finals, and Wes Unseld was the MVP. Along with that, he won a regular season MVP and Rookie of the Year in 1969. However, Unseld was 1-4 versus the Knicks and Willis Reed in the playoffs. So I'm wondering, if Reed doesn't get hurt, do the Knicks win more than 2 championships? Because they did have a really good starting 5 and deep depth too. I think Jerry Lucas was on that team, providing valuable minutes and rebounds and defense. Like, they were kind of stacked for that era. Maybe they could have been the dynasty, and maybe Reed gets higher on this list, but the fact that Unseld reached his peak in the 70s and Reed was on the downward slope, that was the edge that I gave to Wes Unseld. At number 4, I got Bill Walton, who is one of the great what-ifs in basketball lore. He only played in 209 games in the 70s, but in that span, he averaged 17 points and 13 rebounds. He won 2 championships in the 70s and won 1 in the 80s, won the 1977 Finals MVP. He then won the MVP in 78. And sure, Bill played a fraction of the time as some of these other guys on this list, but his impact when he was healthy was very evident. I wish I could say more about Bill Walton, but despite him not being able to stay healthy, he was definitely one of the better centers of that era. He just had glass bones, and he did sweep Kareem and the Lakers in the 80s. But that was in the 80s. I'm trying to just only count stuff that happened in the 70s for the most part. At number 3, I got Bob McAdoo, but truthfully, he could have been number 2. Between him and who I have at number 2, it's very close. It just depends on what you value. Bob McAdoo averaged 22 points, 9.4 rebounds over his career. He won Rookie of the Year in 73. 2 years later, he won the MVP. Didn't win any championships until the 80s when he linked up with Magic and them. But after his rookie season, In 73, he had a 5-year stretch where he averaged 29 points and 13.5 rebounds. 3 years out of that 5, he led the league in scoring with 30-plus points in each season, and he's the last player in league history to average 30 and 15. Now, Wilt did almost do it the next year. He missed out on it by 1 point, but again, still impressive. He's the last player in league history to average 30 points and 15 rebounds. Now, there are several reasons why he didn't land at the number 2 spot, though. To start, Bob's numbers take a dip in the playoffs, going from 22 points to 18 and from 9 rebounds down to 7. Part of that is going to the Lakers with Magic in them, but another part is that he was riddled with injuries after his stint with the Buffalo Braves, or the Clippers as they're known now. And his body was just broke down by the time he got to LA. In 1975, he averaged 37 points and 13 rebounds in the playoffs. And by 1982, in those playoffs, those numbers dropped by 50%. The last reason that Bob McAdoo is not number 2 is because he's 0-2 in the playoffs against the number 2 guy on this list, which is none other than Dave Cowens. Dave Cowens is the second greatest center of the 70s. He didn't average as many points as McAdoo, but he averaged more rebounds and almost averaged 4 assists. He and Wes Unseld were undersized for their center positions, but both were better at getting their teammates involved than everyone on this list, along with defending at a high level against guys bigger than them. Cowens was a lot more consistent in the playoffs than McAdoo too. His numbers don't drop at all like McAdoo's. He was more available with less injuries plaguing him in his production. With his consistently great play at both ends, Cowens got 2 rings, one in 74, another in 76, and just looking at the stats, he should have won the 76 Finals MVP, but it went to JoJo White, who also had a hell of a series on paper, so I'm not really that mad at it. I'm not as mad as the Willis Reed second MVP. That shit is egregious, but along with actually winning championships in the 70s and playing great in the playoffs, Dave Cowens also made more all-star teams, was an MVP caliber player for longer than McAdoo. So Dave Cowens' consistency landed him in the number 2 spot. Unfortunately, he played in the era with arguably the greatest center of all time and arguably a top 5 player all time, and that's being generous because you could work him into my top 3 really. But the best center of the 1970s, hands down, is Lou Alcindor, better known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. For his career, he averaged 24 points, 11 rebounds, but in the 1970s, he averaged 28 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks. Kareem won Rookie of the Year and was third in MVP votes, along with making both the second All-NBA and second defensive teams. And from there, he made 19 All-Star teams in his career. He won 1 championship with the Bucks in 71, where he was the MVP of that finals and league MVP. He won 5 total MVPs in the 70s and 1 more in the 80s. Then he went to LA and won 5 more rings to match his MVP. And he's still third all-time in rebounding and was first all-time in scoring for almost 40 years until LeBron broke it just 2 years ago in 2023. And I could go on and on about how great Kareem was in the 70s. Unfortunately for him, though, his dominance in this decade is overlooked, like I said, because he wasn't winning every other championship or winning, 5+ until he got with the Lakers in the 80s. And the reason why he isn't a definitive top 3 in some people's eyes is because he wasn't winning consistent championships until Magic Johnson came to LA. But in Kareem's defense, nobody was really winning championships like that in the 70s, at least not consistently. And aside from that, Kareem was not just the best center of the 70s by a mile. He has a strong case for being the best player in the 70s, period. And that's just how good Kareem was. He was the Mikan of the 70s. He just didn't really have a ring. Or didn't have the rings in the 70s to prove it. But he did win them later on in the 80s. And we'll get to that list later on. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video and this Battlefield gameplay. I played a lot of the beta. Was I very good? No. I can get better. This is some of my better gameplay. I hope y'all enjoy it. There's still a few more minutes left on this video, so if y'all want to, just peep it out and enjoy some of the visuals and some of the gunfights I get into, it's really great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely at least a must cop this October. COD got to step it up. COD got to show me something. Pause. But for real, I'm really looking forward to this year's Battlefield and getting back in the Battlefield. Oh man, I'm so hyped. I haven't been this hyped. And memories I got on Battlefield 3, y'all. Memories I got on that game. Battlefield 6 is shaping up, at least for now. It's looking like the must cop, along with Outer Worlds 3 Outer Worlds 2, and what else? What else is dropping? The Grand Theft Auto, of course, is a must cop for next year. I don't know. I'll have to take a look at. There's a decent lineup. None off the top of my head right now that I could really think of besides those. But Battlefield and Outer Worlds, definitely some must cops. Might do a let's play on the new Outer Worlds. Y'all stay tuned for that. Because, I got more hot content dropping soon. I do be live still. I don't do live streams on this channel no more. I started a live channel. It's called Game Gang Live. You can look it up on YouTube. That's where I be at. I also be on Twitch too when I stream, ANT_GGE. I also started a TikTok. I believe that is ANT_303 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, go follow me on all my socials so y'all can stay tuned, like I said, for all this hot content that I'll be dropping sooner than later. Now, especially I'll be doing bully let's plays on my live stream, still doing Ants Random Rants. Y'all to tune in. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed this. Leave a comment if you disagree with this list. Like I said, I don't foresee anybody really having any disagreements with these older lists, but when I get into the next, like the 80s and 90s, 2000s, there's definitely going to be some decisions made that are not going to please everybody, but that's okay, because again, I'm not trying to please everybody. It's my list. I'm down to debate in the comments, and I give my reasons on why, but I'm also always down to hear reasoning or more info on maybe why I should change up my list. Always down. But y'all be safe. Y'all, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Let y'all enjoy the rest of this gameplay. I'm out. Y'all, like I said, y'all be safe. Don't get smoked. It's been your boy, ANT, repping the motherfucking game gang. We don't play. None of that. If you a lame, you can't hang. All of that. Bang, bang. And I'm out. Peace.
Contact hostile troop Titan! Hostile machine gun in sight!
We have eyes on an enemy tank in your area.
Let's go!